Take it away.
What is up, Ed? Hey, man, I'm excited to be here. And I am, as you know, affectionately known as Hector the Connector. And that's because I have a superpower of going deep with people and connecting with people. And it's something that I guess I don't know if I've just innately had it, but it's something that served me well. And I'm super jazzed to be here. And I'm all yours, brother. You
Do you
know.
remember a time? I'll talk a little bit to the audience here in a moment about you and our relationship and how we met. But since you're on the Hector Connector to start, do you remember going way back in your childhood, even where like I've been a connector since I was a kid. I can remember connecting my two 10-year-old neighbor friends, and then they became best friends. And then kind of unfortunately, I felt like the third wheel after a short period of time. But my whole life, I've been a connector as well. And I can remember
Yeah.
doing it all the way back. Do you have recollections way back in your childhood of doing it?
I have a recent one, but way back in my geez, I don't. I know I always had connections, and I was always part of teams and stuff, and played club soccer and martial arts and stuff. But yeah, not really. I can't think of one time, that I did that. I just have this probably from my parents, the desire to help someone that's going through something.
Yeah.
So you know, I have memories of being a kid. My mom's driving me somewhere, perhaps to see my niece and nephew or something, and it might be raining, and there's a lady with a couple of kids carrying groceries, and she just pulls right over and goes, "Hector, get out, see if that lady needs a ride."
Yeah.
Or an old man just walking in the heat, and she's like, "Get out and go see if that man needs a ride," and she'll take him anywhere. So I think that's just kind of part of my DNA of, I would see someone with a flat tire and I would just pull over immediately, pay no caution to the wind, and help them get their car off the road onto a place, change their tire, no man involved. It's just, woman and kids. And I'm like, no, I got this. So maybe it's that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've as long as I've known you. So just for those that don't know the relationship Hector and I have, we've been, best of friends for well over a decade. Feels like it's been my whole life. I know it's only been 10 or 15 years, but can't remember a time where I couldn't pick up the phone in good times or bad and send a text or make a phone call to this guy right here. And we joke that we're brothers from another mother. We have a lot of other words we use, but we won't use those. But just that friendship that Hector and I have. Hopefully, that'll be very obvious and apparent in this conversation. But I've recorded 99 episodes of the From the Hart podcast, and I've actually recorded a few more since number 99, but I've wanted number 100 to be with Hector. So even though there's a couple more than 99 already recorded, we're releasing this one as episode 100 before we release any of the others because um, Hector's just been this special friend for a long, long time, and family friend. Our wives know each other. We go back, and so it's exciting for me, Bud, to get a chance to chat with you to talk all things Hector and MBN and your work and just your life. And I think that what you just shared about what your mom would do with you, if there's somebody on the side of the road that needs help, sounds to me like it wasn't just a faith-based good Samaritan type thing as much it was just what's the right thing to do. And one of the things I've observed about you over the years is you're not afraid to walk up and talk to anybody about anything at any time. It sounds like that lesson was ingrained in you pretty early on. If you're walking up to strangers and, hey, do you need a ride, or can I help change your tire? Now as a, you know, close to my age, 50 something
Yeah.
ish or what have you, you don't have that fear to go and just talk to anyone.
Right, right. And I mean, it was instilled by my father as well,
Yeah.
because he just liked helping people. And so he had to get up at 4 in the morning to do a, laborious job. He was a glazer. For those that don't know what that is, it's installing glass and framework in buildings. And uh, one of the buildings he worked on was a Bonaventure Hotel. He was like the lead guy putting all the glass in that thing. So imagine how many floors that is. There wasn't the technological scaffolding and certain things. He had to carry 2 buckets of tools, heavy tools, up a ton of stairs to start at the top and start working down. So even though he had to start at 4 in the morning, he might be helping somebody, a neighbor across the
Yeah.
street or down the street, work on their truck till midnight or later, knowing that he had to get up at 4 in the morning, but he's
Sure.
turning wrenches for somebody that, couldn't afford a mechanic.
Talk about
Yeah.
early mentors. Sounds like your mom and your dad, obviously, in that way, and your dad with his work ethic, and your mom with her kind heart. Two things that I know about you that you obviously picked up from them. Are there other characteristics about them or other leaders that you had early on in your life that you've tried to carry those lessons on throughout your life?
It's an interesting question because, as you know, you and I are like two open books when we
Mhm.
connect. It's
Yeah.
like we can talk about anything. So it wasn't always that. There was the opposite of that. So I sometimes say that my dad ruled the house with two iron fists.
Mm.
And it wasn't like that was who he was. It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting dilemma that he and my mom, how they connected and everything. By the way, I'm a Mexican American. I
Mhm.
I want to talk about my heritage, like where I came from and stuff like that, just so people know who I am.
Right.
And so my mom was born in Orange, here in Orange County, and her mother, so my grandmother, who I never met, was born in Garden Grove. And then her parents were born in Mexico, so I guess I'm third generation American. My mom's father, my grandfather, he fought in World War II. On my dad's side, um, he was born in Chicago, and he was orphaned at like 2.5, 3 years old. So he knew English. And then his mother passed away. His dad couldn't handle having two young kids and sent him away to Mexico to live with some cousins that they didn't even know. So my dad was kind of orphaned. Um, the I guess hmm, the lesson here, or the my parents both grew up. If you ate it or wore it, they picked it. So they worked the fields.
Okay.
Even though they were US citizens, even though mom was second generation, how they lived like immigrants. They picked anything. Like if I'm driving down
Mm.
uh, Route 99 in Northern California, she can pick out. I'll be flying down with her to go visit some relatives, and she could pick out every type of tree, every
Wow.
type of thing because she's picked it. She doesn't have to think about it. But anyhow, so I just want to kind of let you know that I come from laborers,
Sure.
and they literally lived in camps and stuff like that. Like my dad made his way back at like 14 years old from Mexico to the US without an education. He had like a third grade education. My mom had a sixth grade education. They grew up dirt poor. And I guess they had some good values, and then they had some not so good values.
Sure.
My mom's mother passed away when my mom was 11. And so she became an instant seamstress, cook, uh, caring for a bunch of younger siblings. My grandfather remarried right away with someone with children, and they had more children. So my mom grew up in a really, really rough time. Same thing as my father. So they didn't have role models, and I'm sure they did the best that they could with what they knew, and they did phenomenal,
Yeah.
all things considered. And from the outside looking in, like I said, my dad ruled a house with two iron fists. I don't think that was his nature to do that. He didn't know a whole lot different, because of how he was raised, and my mom as well. And so I think we lived in a pretty chaotic house. So I grew up in a rough neighborhood, went to rough schools, um, 2 blocks from the railroad tracks that divided Compton from Linwood is
Mm.
pretty much where I grew up from second grade to till I graduated high school. And yeah, there was definitely really good lessons. Mom taught me how to sew and cook at a very young age. However,
Mm.
there were, lightning and thunderstorms and dark clouds in my childhood,
Yeah.
that really I had to do a lot of work to kind of figure out how to change the trajectory of my life.
Yeah, when I think about you, and you and I've talked about this episode for a long time, and here we are finally recording it, but in lots of conversations that we've had over the years, even before I had this podcast, you've shared with me some of the upbringing. And when I look at any person that's going to be a guest, if it's somebody that I don't know very well, I'll do a little digging and have a few conversations to make sure that their story comes out. And it's on me to draw it out, but it's on the guest to share it as well. It's kind of a joint effort there. With someone like you, who I know very well, and you're probably one of those guests, other than maybe my dad and a couple others that I've interviewed, that I know exceptionally well before the light goes on and the microphone's turned on. I know your story. So when I think of you, I think of this transition from, that hard childhood that you had. Yeah, you learned a lot of great things and a lot of great lessons from mom and dad that you just touched on. But from being in and around gangs to the life that you have now, there's not enough time in this podcast for us to cover it all, or we do. But I'd like to just take you back. I know that you're okay with it because we've
Oh
talked
yeah,
about this.
I'm
Talk
an open book,
about,
brother.
if you could, because what I hope our listeners and our viewers will get from this conversation is that they'll see the journey you've been through and what you've overcome and what you're doing with your life now against pretty much all the odds. I didn't have the childhood you did, and I haven't accomplished the things that you have. I've accomplished different things and I had different challenges, but go back to early challenges in your childhood or in your youth that, there's a lot you could talk about, but try to pull a couple that really maybe molded you and taught you lessons that you've been able to apply in your life now.
Wow. I guess the work ethic from my dad, um, and yeah, he had a very strong work ethic, and there was some creativity within there. And I think that some of the lessons, I think I got really lucky because, like I said, I grew up in a tumultuous household. There was abuse, and from the outside, I talk to cousins today, and they're like, "Holy cow, I had no idea."
Hmm.
And then they go, "And my household was this way," and I'm like, "I had no idea."
Right.
Right? From the outside looking in, it's a whole different deal. From the inside, I experienced, I would just say torturous, times, very, very challenging times. And I think that who I am now, a lot of those challenging times, because I was able to overcome them, made me who I am and gave me the character that I have now and the ability to have empathy for other people in those situations. And so, um, insurmountable lessons. I think that, I mean, it's incredibly unfortunate that my brother, almost 10 years my senior, took the brunt of, all this abuse, and he made different choices than I did. And I got
Mhm.
to learn lessons from my brother. He went to prison. He went to jail early. He wanted attention, and um, my parents didn't have uh, they didn't know how to um, they didn't know how to raise a young man because my dad worked a lot to, there was 5 children and he worked a lot. Probably didn't have a ton of patience. He had quite a bit of patience, but mom was kind of crazy. You talked to her once.
Hmm.
I think I called your dad on his birthday and you called my mom on her birthday
Right.
out of the blue just to
Yeah. That was a
just to
great,
mess
great
with them.
experience. I know my dad talked about that up until the last days of his life, how important that
Yeah.
was to him and what it meant to him that you called him.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks. That was a really cool thing that we did for each other.
Yeah.
And but my mom was, by all intensive purposes, I mean, she was clinically, you know, um, probably depressed and um, had all kinds of issues, mental issues, where she would just, you know, pop off in a second, and all the kids took the brunt of that. And so I kind of learned what not to do that my brother did because he got in so much trouble. And it was like, I mean, we've talked about this before, um, where I've kind of been pushing this story down for 40 years of my life. Like when I was 3 years old, right? I have so many memories. I was born in Merced, California, and as a child, I was born in Merced. and lived there till I was 3. We moved to the San Fernando Valley in Van Nuys. So I was there from like 3.5 to like 6.5, maybe 7. So I really remember those years in Merced, the years in Van Nuys, and then the rest of the years in Linwood. And those critical years that I'm like incredibly blessed that I was able to survive and accomplish what I've accomplished and be who I am and empathetic and you know changing for the better. Like I know I can't be that person that I used to be, and because I was surrounded with all that trauma. So at 3 years old, I remember witnessing my brother getting beat really, really viciously by somebody that I love. That was my father.
Mm.
And how do you unpack that as a 3-year-old? But I
Right.
remember that. I've asked my brother, I've asked my sister, did this really happen? Was it as brutal as I think it was? And they're like, yeah, it was. Um, so, and then if we fast forward a little bit till, I mean, it's so many crazy things happen,
Hmm.
so many crazy. I mean, Van Nuys, my brother would make me fight as a little kid. I'd be, I was 3.5 to 5.5, 6.5 years old, and he would go kick that guy's ass. I'm a kid,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
and but I was used to him dominating me. If I didn't do exactly what he said, I would get a beat down. As a little innocent kid, how do
Mm.
you do? You got grandkids that age, right?
Right.
So it's like, how does that happen? I got to fight some big neighbor kid, his buddy's big, little brother that's bigger than me and probably older than me. And I got to go throw down as a little kid and get my ass kicked. And because
Yeah.
I get my ass kicked, my brother kicks my ass again. It's like until I'm tough enough to take these bigger
Yeah.
guys. And, I, he used to brag that he would put 2 tables together outside the pool that was in the backyard. 2 of those tables, take the umbrellas off. He would stand on there, and at 4 years old, I would dive off his shoulders. And I'm like, no, I didn't do that. You made me do that.
Yeah.
You made me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I whatever he said, I just did. So that that was there was crazy stuff that happened in my household, and I remember moving to Linwood and at 11 years old because my mom was, yeah, I don't know, just mentally disturbed, mentally ill. From the outside, you'd never know. She's,
Right. People
humorous,
don't
she's
know what's going
funny.
on inside the walls of some homes.
Yeah. So it's tax time. We got the whole living room littered with receipts. And my mom and dad are both W-2 employees. My mom's probably like a part-time, and if she was even an employee, my dad's an employee. There's no, and I used to sleep in the front room because there was 5 of us, small 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. Um, my bedroom was the front room. I either slept on the couch or the floor, and it was. I just remember so vividly that being a kid, and it was a school night, and it was kind of cold, and I don't know if they applied for an extension or what, but I just remember walking out the door of my kitchen, kneeling on the floor and praying to God, please take my mom, because she tasked me to go outside in the dark at like 11 o'clock at night and clean up the backyard. And the
Mm.
backyard wasn't my stuff. It was spare tires and junk that she probably collected from who knows where. And to have to put that on myself, I want, I wanted her, to be taken out. I even know that around that time I told her that I wanted to kill myself.
Mm. Wow.
I don't want to be here anymore.
As a child.
As a child, 11 years old. I mean, I'm like, I can't take this, I mean, I don't even know how else to communicate that, but I don't want to be here anymore.
Right.
And her response was, go talk to the priest. I'm just like, so it was a very, yeah, tumultuous relationship. I thought I was out of this whole cycle of stuff when I got out of high school. And as a kid I picked up paints and drawing and learned how to draw, and that was kind of like my escape, my saving grace from all the craziness within my household. And it seemed as though my folks would like leave me alone. If I was out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, kind of for some amount of time, and I just tried to not get in trouble. And so I would draw and paint. I ended up excelling in that. My parents saw that. My dad actually supported it. And but I I think there's, yeah, just a tremendous amount of lessons. And I could tell you about um just turning 19 years old. I'm 2 years into a job I like, doing what I love to do, design, and got hired right out of high school, got a nice car, got a girl, and I'm thinking it's over. I got all these friends. Hector, I guess I was Hector the Connector because I was
And through
friends
all
with
the
all the
challenges, and now my
guys.
life starts.
I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm looking at the future, making a little more money than some of my buddies. College, I had a couple of college courses, and then things went sideways really, really bad. And I can go into detail if you want or not, but I ended up having to literally um change who I was at 19, just turning 19. I had to leave town. I went to jail because I witnessed, my brother being violent. He had been in prison, and he had come out recently when I just turned 19, and he was he was meaner and tougher than I ever remember. And he dragged me into some mess that he had, and I didn't want to be there. And but he wasn't going to let me off the hook, and he pretty much insisted that I go to this this pretty much a gang fight essentially. And somebody was murdered that night, and I was a witness. And that changed my life, for the worst at that moment, because he took off. He was on the run. I had to go to jail. He kind of told me what was going to go down, and I ended up going uh, to the county jail for 3 days.
You told me this story before, and one thing I'm not clear on, did you confess to it, or were you just pointed out by others who were there, or how did you take the rap for what he did?
Yeah, I didn't actually take the rap, but what happened was something was going to go down, and I didn't want to be there. Like, it's like a Saturday night. I'm getting ready to go to a buddy's party down the street, and my buddies are picking me up, and my brother, you know, rolls into the back house where I'm ironing, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to be somewhere tonight." And I'm like, sorry, bro. I'm gonna be hanging. My buddies are picking me up. I'm gonna be down the street." He goes, "Nah, you don't understand. You you better be there." And I mean, no, there was a lot of um intent behind that.
Yeah.
So I knew um when he was that intent, something serious was gonna happen. And I knew that if I didn't partake, something serious was gonna happen to me.
Hmm.
So I still went to this, my buddy's house. And then, I don't know, an hour into having fun with my buddies and hanging out, he shows up and he's like, "You're going with me right now. Let's go now." He was so intent, and I just had to go because otherwise I'd pay the consequences. And like I said, he was fresh out of prison, and he was running the streets, like literally telling people what crimes to do and drugs and all kinds of stuff like that, and a lot of violence. And so I ended up going with him, and there was just this. There was a big fight. It was a couple of fights and a couple more fights, and somebody tried to jump in, and my brother beat this guy up, and all these things were happening. And I mean, this is enough for a Scorsese movie,
Yeah, right.
actually.
I'm picturing the movie. Yeah. Who plays you in the
Eh,
movie, right? So, yeah.
but my brother ends up shooting somebody because he was, doing some crack cocaine, and he was drinking, and he was the most violent guy in the neighborhood, and somebody disrespected him, and all these things. I mean, it was a lot of violence, a lot of craziness. Well, there was probably 15 or 16 people at this thing, at this fight. And when he shot this individual from, I don't know, who knows, 30, 40 yards out, um, the gun went off right by my ear. I didn't know what he was going to do, and he did it. And and he had somebody drive us away from the scene, one of his homeboys, and then he basically ran it down. Hey, cops are going to be looking for us. He knew the routine. He knew the drill.
Yeah, he'd been
He's
there.
like,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm going out of town. I'm going to go out of state. He goes, I'm going to be on the run. I'm not going back to prison. You go home. You didn't do anything. You know, they'll probably arrest you and take you to the county for 3 days. And so they did that. I went home and he had his buddy drop me off. And my parents it was like 4 in the morning and they were worried sick. They were standing out front. And I remember it being foggy. It was in November. And they're like, cops have been here 4 times.
Mm.
They're looking for you and your brother. They just want to talk to you. They said, did you do anything? I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. I go, let's go. And, my brother gave me the drill. He's like, hey, don't talk to these people. Don't talk to those people. And
Yeah.
you'll be all right. If you need to talk to anybody, just talk to the Latinos in there, the Chicanos, and you'll be all right. You know? So I go to the police station and they play good cop, bad cop. And you and I are the same age. So they
Yeah.
pull out this giant recorder with these giant buttons and they're
Mm-hmm.
being super nice. Hey, come over here. Your parents are going to be in the lobby and we just want to talk to you.
Yep.
So I'm not a big guy. You know me. I'm like, what, 5'6", a buck 40 maybe.
Right.
I was like a buck 15 back
Hmm.
then and soaking wet. And they were just kind of nice. And they got their clipboard out and their pencil and they hit that button on the tape recorder and like, all right, tell us what happened yesterday. Well, my brother said, you're not ratting. Here's your alibi. Stick to your story. That's that. So I did. And then it became Bad Cop. And this was
Yeah.
a series of, 3 or 4 hours. And Bad Cop wasn't, it was bad. Spit flying everywhere, getting yelled
Mhm.
at, getting threatened. They finally gave up because I wasn't going to rat my brother out. And then they booked me on Murder One
Wow.
to scare me. They
Try to
said
get
they
you to
knew I
talk
was
or
there.
confess or rat him out.
Yeah. So I have to call my mom. It was the most horrible call because I get my one phone call, but I'm asking like, hey, are my parents? No, no, no. You're getting
Yeah.
booked on Murder One. We sent them home a long time ago. So I call her
Mm.
up and she says, Mijo, can we come pick you up? And I'm like, no, Ma. I go, they booked me on Murder One and her heart
Mm.
just sank. I
Yeah.
could feel it. And then, and I had never been in trouble before.
Did she know it was your brother? Or did
Oh,
she
yeah.
at that point think it was you?
No, everyone, no, because when I went home, they asked if I did anything. And I go, no, I was there, but I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I told my parents and they probably figured. So I ended up going into the county jail like the day after they arrested me and I had to do 3 days there. But the very first day I arrived, like my brother said, don't talk to these people, don't talk to those people, you'll be all right. You could talk to the Chicanos. And I'm handcuffed with all these guys, like 20, 30 guys, and shackled together, and these giant cops,
Mm.
menacing looking cops.
Yeah.
And just walking and walk past the jail cell. And I just kind of glance this way, and this guy just roars at me. He's like, "Oh, I'll kill you. What are you looking at?" In front of the guards. He's reaching for me.
Mm.
I am like, holy cow,
You're this
what just
tiny
happened?
19-year-old kid who isn't going to be intimidating to anybody in there.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So fast forward, I mean, I narrowly escaped all kinds of things during those days. There was heat between the Latinos and the blacks, and they're the majority in there. So it's like 90% Latino and black, a sprinkle of white, and a sprinkle of Asian. That's it. That's what's there. And so lots of stuff popping off. And as I was leaving, I got my name called day 3. I'm in a room full of 400 men, 3 beds high, and there was violence in there. There was all kinds of stuff happening, lots of things. I was very fortunate, but as I was walking out when they called my name, I had to pass, a couple hundred guys, and I'm walking. I'm like, "Phew, you don't know what time it is in there. You just don't know.
Yeah.
There's no daylight or night or nothing. I
Could be
mean,
7
till
a.m. or 11 p.m. or anything in between. Yeah.
yeah. So, um, uh, black guy makes a beeline for me. I could see him. He just, as soon as they call my name, I'm walking straight to the where the police are at, and this guy comes around, and he's much bigger, and he just bumps me, and I'll save you the expletives, but
Hmm.
he goes, "You are lucky I was getting ready to stick your ass
Hmm.
right in front of the cop,
Yeah.
right there." So I stick my arm in the glass. The guy goes, "Let me see your wristband." And um he looks at it and he goes, "Huh, murder one." He goes, "I think I got to put you back in there." And in my head, I'm like, I can't go back. This guy
Right.
just said he's gonna kill
Yeah.
me.
It's a death sentence if you put me back in there.
And he makes a few calls and he goes, "All right, I guess you're getting out of here." And
Hmm.
I get out. They give me paper clothes because they stole the clothes that I walked in with. And I got a paper shirt, paper pants, and some slippers. And my parents are waiting for me out there, and pretty much my life changed at that moment. I was like, took a deep breath. I'm like, oh, my parents are here. I'm going to go home. Everything's going to be okay. I didn't do anything. My dad says, lay down in the back seat. And I'm like, what's going on? And
Hmm.
my mom goes, your clothes is in the trunk. We're leaving town. We're taking you up north. The word on the street is, if they can't get your brother, they're going to get you. And the
Hmm.
person my brother murdered had 4 brothers from the same gang. So what are the chances of me surviving that, staying in my neighborhood? Um, so I get dropped off at an uncle's house who is out in the boonies in Northern California, and I get woken up around 4 in the morning. Get up, you're going to work, and for the next 2 weeks, I'm on a tomato picking
Hmm.
machine, uh, breathing dirt from sun up to sundown, freaking out because I witnessed a murder.
Yeah, any day somebody could find you for one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, PTSD, man. My
Right.
ear was still ringing for days. I couldn't hear out of it. I actually
Yeah.
still have some issues because of that.
Yeah.
And but I stayed in Northern California for several months. I picked tomatoes with some cousins because that's what they did, and it was horrible work. Um, I couldn't take it after a couple of weeks, and so there's a lot of situations that happen. I couldn't find work there. I mean, um, I was talented already. I knew what I was doing. Nobody would hire me in Northern California, and little by little, I made my way back. And but lots of lessons, lots of really, really tough situations that challenged my life, challenged everything about who I was. My grit was tested. My just who I was as a young man was tested in so many different ways. And I guess I just knew I couldn't be like my brother, and I had to find mentors, and I had to find people that uh, I could look up to. And it was rough, man. My
Yeah.
very first apartment, I worked an 8-hour job as a designer from like 8 to 5, and then I worked 4 hours doing technical illustration Monday through Friday. And then I worked Saturday and Sunday at the Cerritos Mall
Hmm.
airbrushing t-shirts
Hmm.
and
Wow.
lugging my equipment there, driving there. I didn't live that close to there, just so I can afford a 1-bedroom apartment with a lawn chair.
Hmm.
So those were very, very, trying times. I had no other choice but to work harder than I had ever worked for a little peace of mind.
So, what's the difference in your opinion looking back? And not to interrupt the story, but
Oh no.
looking back, most people, and again, my only experience of this is what you've shared with me over the past and then today, or movies. Okay. And movies it's
Sure,
Hollywood, so
sure,
it's not real.
sure.
Although I've heard some of it is pretty
Oh yeah,
accurate.
sure.
What's the difference between those that didn't get out of that life and you?
Oh, I'll tell you. Dead, hooked on drugs, um, shot,
But why isn't that? Why
uh,
aren't those things you?
suicide. It could have been me. It's suicide if I stayed there. So the really, really unfortunate thing is I fashioned it to this was a blessing in disguise for me. And it's a horrible thing to think about that somebody's life had to be taken for my life to be taken out of that situation to where just by being there, just by being in that environment, you can be a statistic. Just being in the hood, even though you're like, even before that happened, there was a time I was probably 18 and I already had a nice car because I worked and worked a lot and worked, you know. So I went to a different party down the street in my neighborhood, and this guy, a gangster, is at that party and he asked me to for a ride home a few blocks down. So I said, sure. I knew who he was. And as we're leaving, these cars start driving up down the street in front of the party. And there's a carload of girls followed by other cars. And these girls are talking, I guess the gangster, he was a little older, and he's flirting with these girls and he's flexing, he's tatted up, and he's kind of buff. And these girls are engaging him. Well, the girls stop. The three cars behind the girls stop. Behind the girls are three carloads full of guys, and they're all from Watts, a neighboring gang turf. And they get out, and before you know it, I'm up against my car with knife here, here, here. There's like five guys with knives, and one guy is like, "We're gonna kill you, man. We're gonna kill you. Where do you live?" I go, "I live down the street." "Oh, you live in Linwood? We're gonna kill you."
Hmm.
I'm I am up against my car. I have no defense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And in the third car, there's a guy named Kiko, and he says, "Hey," he goes, "Hector, is that you, man?" He goes, "Hey, he's cool, man. Leave him alone."
Hmm.
He's an older guy that I had gone to school with,
Yeah.
a couple of years, 2, 3 years older than me. He saved my life.
He
I
doesn't show
was
up. You're not here having this conversation.
done. Absolutely. So, and just growing up, dude, in that environment in Linwood, I've seen people shot, stabbed. You know, my brother, people my brother used to hang out. My brother was the gang leader in the neighborhood, and our house got shot up.
Hmm.
I mean, there's so many things that happened. You know, I couldn't have been here because I was probably in, I don't know, fourth grade, and a bullet 4 inches above my head while I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. That could have been, I could have been done. And you know, I've just when you're in that environment, you don't know any different.
Yeah.
You don't like it, but you know how to deal with it. You don't you don't enjoy it. It's like anybody. I mean, I hate to even bring this up, but there's women that get abused by men.
Hmm.
Men are the abusers, and oftentimes the woman will leave that relationship and go right to another relationship the same or worse
What they know.
because it's what they know. They know how to deal with it. They despise it, they fear it, they don't
Yeah.
like it, but it's what they know. And same thing in the ghetto. I didn't like it at all, but it's what I knew. I knew
Yeah.
that at any moment anybody can get murdered, stabbed, shot. It was just it's just kind of how I grew up in that environment. So that kind of prepared me for not being so afraid of
Hmm.
people um, in different areas, different communities, business circles. It's kind of like I'm not going to get shot in this meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably helps you deal with adversity as an adult and as a business owner, as a father, as a husband now, because the potential consequences of a bad day today are nothing like what a bad day
Oh,
was or could have
oh,
been
right.
40 years ago,
Absolutely.
50 years
Yeah,
ago. How's
absolutely.
that shaped you into you have two daughters.
Yeah,
I've had the good fortune of having one of them, Marissa, on this podcast a couple of years
yeah,
ago. So I've gotten to know your
yeah,
girls.
yeah.
How have your experiences that you just outlined molded you into a father?
It made me appreciate these precious girls that I have more
Yeah,
than anything, and appreciate that I get to, because I made it out, I can help them make it out of whatever situation they're in, because their situation isn't as bad as the one I had. I say that with, you know, so much respect for people that go through things, because everybody might have some suffering to do. And I know my daughters go through phases of, they
sure.
need stuff. They need things. They need, support, whether it's financial, emotional, education, love. Um, I didn't get a lot of love in my family. And I don't know if this is a trait that happens when you don't get any, you tend to overgive some.
We
And I don't,
overcompensate sometimes, sure.
yeah, and I think I might have done that by, just loving on my daughters and
Well, if the
just,
options are to love them too much or not enough, I'd rather love them too much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I feel tremendously blessed that I've just grown. And I mean, I worked on myself, brother. You know that I'm
Yeah.
counseling and
Constantly. Sure.
therapy and mentors and leadership and community. And I genuinely love people. And I wish I knew then what I know now, because some of those, I would I would say that some of those people growing up were more hurt. They were just broken, more broken than the average person, and I could have helped them be less broken,
Yeah.
because I, you know, how tall are you, brother? Six
Six
what?
three.
You come down and hug me all the time. I go up a couple of inches and you come down several inches.
Hmm. Well, it doesn't feel like it. Feel like we're
But
heart to
it's
heart, soul to soul, hugging each other. The height difference doesn't. You're a
but
giant of a
it's
man, so
it's those hugs, man. It's those hugs and those genuine connection, and it's how I prepare every single day now, and how I am so intentional about how I'm going to show up in my day, and
yeah.
how I'm going to bring the weather. And we talked about
Mhm.
that, and
Well, you
and
know that each
how
day is a blessing. I mean, you have literally, unlike most of us who can hear my voice right now, and certainly I've not ever faced life-threatening things like you have. And you know, we can people's experiences do a lot. They help the person grow. They also, as you share, help those of us who didn't go through it grow and appreciate what we have. I have a greater appreciation for how good I have it because of what you've been through and what you've done with your life. I mean, a lot of people would have given up. The difference between, I asked a question earlier about the difference between other people who might have gone through what you went through and you is, yeah, you had some support maybe that others didn't have, but you had something inside that kept you fighting. And, others may have taken their own life, might have just taken another life and gone to prison for the rest of the life, might have died in prison, might have, continued the pattern of abuse or hard home.
yeah.
That's one that happens a lot. You see somebody that is abusive, and chances are it's a learned behavior. They don't know any better.
Oh yeah, hurt people, hurt people. Yeah,
Hurt people, love people, love people. Absolutely. You and I say that all the time.
yeah. I broke that cycle, brother.
Yeah, you
I
did. God bless you for
totally
that, man. I'm glad you
broke that
did
cycle,
because I have
man.
a best
Oh
friend out
yeah,
of this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I broke it, man. I'm like, yeah, I've overcome a lot, and it's tip of the iceberg, baby. And being in
So
business for over 25 years, it's like,
if there's a 16-year-old in Watts right now who happens to listen to podcasts, and there may or may not
yeah,
be, and he or she is listening to this, and they're going
hmm
through some things that you were going through at that age, or younger or older, 19 on this one experience. Talk
yeah.
to that person. Tell them what you'd like to tell them.
Oh yeah. Geez. Yeah. Wow. I actually, even though, however rough I just described it, I know there's people that had it worse. I had two parents.
Mm,
I had a roof over my head. I
yeah.
didn't go hungry. I didn't have the coolest clothes. I didn't have this or that. But still, some of those other people that are broken. I mean, because my first word is, "Hey, I've been there, but maybe I haven't. Maybe it wasn't as bad as them." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some people that have had it much worse. I would just it's so difficult, man. Like I would do everything I could to get away from um the hood, whatever it takes. And I was incredibly blessed. My sister joined the Navy at 17, even though she couldn't technically. I think, none of us stayed at home.
Yeah.
He he scooped me out of the hood and took me to different places that I would have never otherwise experienced. So I wish a mentor for one of these young kids. And I wish that if they could find some sort of mentorship or any type of role model, any type of like, I would love to help anybody. And yeah, if there's somebody out there and they're listening to this podcast, dude, reach out to me. I will go see you. I will go hang out with you. I will inspire you. I will tell you the depths of hell I've been through and where I'm at right now. And it is silky smooth compared to the rough, environment I was in. And it's okay to not be cool, and it's okay not
Hmm.
to follow, it's okay. It's more than okay. You don't have to follow the peer pressure, even though it's very mighty when you're in school. But yeah, I think having empathy and not being a mean person and I was in the wrong place with the wrong person at the exact right time to get in trouble.
Hmm.
That would be the advice I would be is to find the right person, be in the right room for all the good things to happen because good things will happen when you put yourself with the right people in the right room, like this room right here, brother.
Yeah. When you look at your past, and I'm going to shift gears here in a minute, you've got a book that you're going to hold up in a minute and talk to me about. But before we do that, when you think of, I've interviewed a lot of people of the 99, now 100 guests that I've had on. Many have been through some pretty significant challenges. That's not the theme of what I'm looking for when I interview someone. Sometimes it just comes up in the interview and I didn't even know it was part of their past. A couple of examples of that I won't dive into, but um, the people that I've found that have the most gratitude, and that's a theme of just about everybody I talk to, but the ones that have that highest level of gratitude have had the lowest level of despair in their life. So when
Yes.
you think of the despair in your life, how has that converted into gratitude today?
Mm.
I know it has because I know you. So I'm not going to ask if it
Oh
has because
yeah.
I know you well enough to know
No,
that it
no, no.
has.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. No, I just appreciate everything that I have because I know what I have been through and what I didn't have. And I live in a wonderful neighborhood. I've got these two precious daughters. I've got a beautiful wife. I appreciate everything, man. I
Mm.
appreciate nature and my health and my community and my friendships. And I guess I just appreciate real people like you. You and I have these real deep conversations, and I just have gratitude, man. I am so grateful that I know I'm spoiled rotten. I shouldn't be in this position that I'm in.
Mm.
I don't need what everybody else has. I am like, I'm real, baby. I am okay with this gray hair and
Mm.
these wrinkles and who I am. I'm cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm good. I am grateful that I've made it this far and that I've put a dent in, my trade and that I'm able to I get to go speak. I get
Yeah.
to write a chapter in your book, brother.
Mm.
I get to influence people. I am so grateful that anybody might listen to my story and that my energy, that my mindset, which I work on every day, people have been reaching out to me going, brother, can we talk?
Mhm.
Can we? It almost brings me to tears, the amount of people lately in the last few months and even a couple of staff actually did bring me to tears because they care.
Yeah.
They care so much, and I'm so grateful.
I love that. I love that. It's a question I ask at the end of the podcast, and we're not at the end, but I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to ask it slightly differently right
Sure.
now, and then I'm going to ask
Yeah.
that question down the road when we finish up here in a
Sure.
little while.
Sure.
What breaks your heart more than anything? What would you say breaks your heart?
Um, Probably, wow, what breaks my all kinds of things break
Mm,
my heart. I It breaks my heart that there's kids that don't have choices or their choices are limited. That breaks my heart. Um, it's part of why I support Fristers
mhm.
and want to bring awareness to them because they support young mothers, their children, and the fathers of those children, right? Keeping the family unit together. It breaks my heart. I've got two daughters that I've provided for education, nurturing, loving. I mean, a wonderful neighborhood. Like, they don't have to think about all this violence and stuff that I had to worry about. And when I think about those young ladies that Ellie Woodard helps, that breaks my heart that the statistics of those young mothers, if they don't have somebody to help them and they aren't able to get that family unit together, that breaks my heart, brother. Like, that's why I support. I've got two daughters and they've got
Yeah,
issues. We all have issues. We're all a
sure.
little bit broken. Those young ladies are a lot broken. That breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that um it even in gangs or not gangs, people follow too much, I think. That breaks my heart that it might not even be a good thing, but there's people following without leading. And I think leading is the best thing. So
Yeah.
um yeah, and I'm a work in progress. I'm
Hmm.
trying to lead, man. I
Welcome to the
am
field, man.
so
Yep, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. So you started up a business, MBN. You've started up a few businesses. You've been a very successful entrepreneur. I've been in your home. You, like you said, you have a nice home. You have another one that you rent out. I mean, you're living the American dream, even though it didn't kind of, it started out as kind of the American nightmare, if you will. Um, Talk about mentors that have helped you, whether it's current mentors or ones that helped you in that transition. So you get out of prison, you've been in there a few days, you are shifting your life, you're now married, you've got kids, there's people along the way. One of the common denominators that I see in people that are successful is they can, at a moment's notice, and I can do it too, talk about people along the way that taught them, that mentored them, that kind of grabbed them by the coattails, said, come on, here, we're going this direction, not that direction. Anybody in particular come to mind for you, past, present?
There's a there's a ton of them. One of them was a former business partner, younger than me, bought a house before I did. I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. Hector, you can do it, man. You can do it. I did it. You can do it. Holy shit. Next thing you know, I did it.
Yeah.
It didn't, it didn't get in my head. There's another, uh, the late Manuel Esqueda. He, uh, he fought in World War II. He got blown off a Navy ship. He was at sea for 3 hours or 4 hours in the middle of the night on a piece of, a ship. And he prayed to God that if God saved him, he'd dedicate the rest of his life to humanity. And that he did. He learned to type like, I don't know, something ridiculous, 60 words a minute on that old school typewriter, the one that's on the cover of your book.
Right. There
That
you go.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
He went to go work at B of A, and he was a mentor of mine. So anyhow, he was older when I met him, much older. He's passed away, but he said when he told me a story of working for B of A, and when he showed up, he was the only Latino there, and they go, "Can you handle a broom, boy?"
Hmm.
And he was absolutely. So he's sweeping and he's mopping, and one day, um, a few months later, somebody, the guy that underwrites the loans, that types out all the loans, took vacation, and they had these loans, and like, anybody know how to type? And he goes, yeah,
Right
I
here.
can type. He never got off that typewriter. He became
Hmm.
the first, bank officer of B of A, Latino bank officer.
Hmm.
And uh, I got introduced to him probably 25 years ago. I had a small office, and he would come by, and I had these chocolates, and he always loved to get a chocolate, and he would
Hmm.
mentor me. And little by little, I told some of my friends, and he loved to speak and he loved to mentor, and he owned a lot of properties, and he would do Santa, and I would go with him. He would dress up as Santa, and we'd go to all the little schools in Santa Ana and give gifts and stuff. He gave scholarships, like thousands of scholarships to kids in the inner city and like Orange County and, underprivileged kids so they can go to college. They named a preschool after him in Santa Ana.
That's awesome.
Well, I would bring people to my office, and before you know it, it was standing room only
Mm.
because everybody wanted to listen to Manuel Esqueda. He was in his 80s at the time. And one time I thought I was smart. I said, "Hey, Manuel," I said, "why do businesses fail?" And his big old sausage finger, he put it in my face and he goes, "Business never fails. People fail."
Mm.
Like
There's a lesson
profound.
for you.
People fail. Business never fails.
Yeah.
People fail. So that's one lesson,
Yeah.
and just that this people that are doing things, they don't,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of, I still have unpacking to do, Mom and
Sure.
dad said some things that probably stuck with me. They're in my subconscious that, I have some kind of limiting belief. I've done a lot of workshops, and I think you know Tina Conkin, don't you?
Hmm.
Or I've introduced you to
Through
her
you. Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, talking about
I know
being
a lot of
worthy.
great people because of you, by the way. You've
Oh
introduced me to a lot of
yeah.
great people.
And likewise, brother, we both have a good collection of people.
Yeah,
Uh, any of the young folks on here probably don't know. Yeah, we get this Rolodex of people, right?
exactly. Yeah.
It's
We'll explain what a
entirely.
Rolodex is later. Not a Rolex, a Rolodex. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, just lessons of getting out of your own way and knowing that we're worthy. Because
Hmm.
I didn't know I was worthy of great success. I guess I dreamed it, but I had so many reasons to not be successful,
Yeah.
and so many people around me, and I do my best to be in the right rooms with the right people at the exact right time.
Did you
That's
ever
my
battle imposter syndrome?
um explain exactly what that
So my
means.
yeah, not my it came up on a podcast that I recently did. That's actually going to air after this one.
Like I feel I'm not worthy of
Yeah,
something.
like how did I get here, or how am I so lucky to do this, or people who are actors or actresses is like, what am I doing here? I haven't put in the work that these people have, or I'm not that good, or I suck, or they're going to think I suck, or that fear,
Um
basically that fear of being found out, if you will.
I I don't
Yeah, I
suffer
don't
from
see that
that.
in you actually. As I
I
asked the
f-
question, that's a stupid question because I've not seen it in you in the decades I've known you.
no, no, I feel like I'm I am so good being me. I'm
Mhm.
so comfortable in my skin.
Yeah,
Like I'm good. I don't have to be anybody else.
that's so
And the
good.
more authentic I can be, like the whole reason this story even came up was because the Authentic Rebel Speaker Series that I spoke
Hmm.
on several months ago.
Yeah.
And I was asked to speak on that. And my good friend Jen Ingovic put this on, and there was 17 other speakers. And when I looked at the lineup a few days before I was going to speak, one person lost her son to suicide.
Mm.
She's speaking. Oh,
Mm.
that
There's your
that should
thumb.
be a
Yeah,
that.
there you
It
go.
should be a that.
Right, that thumb
Um,
up was, yeah, that's funny.
Another person lost their son when they went skiing
Hmm.
and never found him after 4 years. He was an avid skier. Another person was an atheist, and she needed a kidney, and then she didn't get her kidney because she needed a heart. And that whole
Hmm.
thing took 5 years. And of all days that she got both was Christmas Day.
Wow.
She now believes in God.
Hmm.
Um, Somebody else that, this guy that sold weed at 12 and crack at 16 and experienced white privilege and had a racist father, and if homophobic father, and if there was any, like, somebody wanted to see a psychiatrist, or one of the kids needed to go into therapy or something, he would only pay cash because he didn't want that on his paperwork. Like, we don't have that in our lineage. We don't have mental
Mhm.
illness. So this guy, and you know was on there and sold $200,000 in real estate, early 20s, $200,000 a month in real
Hmm.
estate,
Wow.
and trained all the A-listers on how to be fit, and used to be a girl.
Hmm.
I'm like, holy shit. I
That's some
gotta,
challenges. Yeah.
I can't be my authentic self. I gotta dig up a story. I had to
Right.
unearth and unpack that story that I've been hiding for 40 years. I was not my authentic self. So I used to have imposter syndrome, I think, for a
Yeah.
lot of years because I was trying to be somebody who I really wasn't.
Yeah.
And today I am, and I love myself, man. And you know, I'm still a little broken. I'm still a little cracked here and there. I got my battle wounds, but I am good, man. I am
Well, and
so
that's the
good.
key is when we recognize that so many people go through life thinking they got it all figured out, or they do one of two things. They think I've got it all figured out and there's no humility, or they think I'm trash and I'm garbage and I can't accomplish anything. And they, that's a lot less healthy. Obviously, you want to, God didn't create trash. Nothing, no one's been created
Right.
that way. And
Yeah.
so certainly we all have these talents and these skills. It's just sometimes we have to dig a little deeper to figure out what it is or be around people. I
Yeah.
was surrounded by parents who were always telling me how great I was and gave me everything I needed. And while I'm grateful for that, there were times when things came so easy that I didn't learn certain lessons that I never to this day at age 60 probably haven't even learned yet because life's been so easy,
Mm,
but
yeah.
other people they're thrown right into that education from day one because they have to fight
Yeah.
or flight. You got to
Yeah.
get out.
Yeah.
So you started up your company doing graphic design and doing, artwork, and creativity has been something that even your dad saw in you young, as you mentioned earlier in this
Yeah.
conversation. When did you take this hobby or this creativity or this creative flair that you have and realize you could turn this into not only just a career, but a way to provide for your family?
I think it goes way back, bro. I don't know if I've told you this story, but I recently was thinking about this, and my very first venture that I remember of having partnership and a business, I was probably around that time that I was probably like 8 or 9, and my best bud at the time, Richard Faust, lived two doors down, two houses down, and it was the dead of summer, and we're home, and we've got no money, and we're bored, and we're like, man, where can we get some money? And we're in my front yard, and I looked over at his house, and I looked behind, and there was this giant avocado tree. I mean, it
Oh
was
yeah.
like, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, why don't we sell avocados?
Hmm.
And there was no way I was climbing up that big ass tree. It was like, yeah, I was afraid of heights.
Yeah.
He climbed up his own tree.
Hmm.
He collected all the avocados. We put them in his red wagon, and then we went door to door. I knocked, I sold them, and we split the proceeds.
Awesome.
And next thing you know, we're like, ice cream, running after the ice cream
Hmm.
truck. We had, our candy and our gum and whatever. We were just, yeah, that was my very first, probably entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
partnership. And, my dad, he made me like, if I wanted money, he didn't give me money. I had to earn it. So I had to go cut lawns, maybe grass this tall for $5 a lawn at the time with a push mower.
Right. Wasn't the electric one or the gas one that just did all the work for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to paint a wrought iron fence. It probably took 2 weeks, and I might have made $40.
Hmm.
I mean, it was so that was instilled in me. And in high school, I used to paint white slip-on vans. My dad, he bought me an airbrush when I was probably around ninth grade. He saw the potential in me.
Hmm.
So he bought a tool shed, put it in the backyard, and he bought me an airbrush, and he bought me all these paints. And I was painting t-shirts like crazy. I painted a bike. Um, and then high school started, and these white vans, I started airbrushing them, tiger stripes and cheetah patterns, and
Nice.
everybody's going nuts over them.
Hmm.
I sold a ton of those. I even met the CEO of Vans not too
Hmm.
long ago. I'm like, brother, I go, the early 80s, if there was a spike of white slip-on Vans in the hood, it was because
It
of
was,
me.
yeah, nice.
Yeah, so kind of always been entrepreneurial. Like I can work, I can get stuff done. I've had challenges with getting a Fortune 100 client where it's 4 o'clock on Friday, and they're asking me to, I've got a friend that works at a Fortune 100 company, Avery Dennison, and he invites me over 4 o'clock on Friday, and he goes, "Hey, I need you to do all these drawings." and they're like 40 drawings, pencil sketches of writing instruments in an environment, on a desk, in a mug with flowers, whatever, just a setting. And he's like, how much are these? What would you charge me to do these 40 drawings? And I'm like, well, I'll charge you, $200 a piece. And he goes, when can I have them? I go, you can have them in a couple of weeks. He goes, how about I give you $400 a piece and I want them on my desk at 7 a.m. on Monday.
Hmm.
And this is Friday at 4
I don't
o'clock.
know, guess what I'm doing this weekend? Yeah.
All weekend. Guess what I'm not doing? Sleeping.
Right.
And so I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'm sweating down the elevator. I'm sweating through the lobby. I get in my car. I call my wife. I'm like, hey, Lon, I go, I'm not coming home this weekend. I'm going straight to the office. Eddie, my illustrators, he's at the office. That's my next call. My bro, can you mind calling your wife? And, I'll make it worth your while. That we stayed up the whole weekend sketching. We were nodding out. My eyes were so red. I was so tired. I barely could make it. 7 a.m. on the dot, 40 drawings. That was the beginning of working for 80 different individuals at this
Wow.
Fortune 100 client over the next 12 years.
Hmm.
So there's been those things.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't shy away from those challenges, and I can make stuff happen. I can pull a rabbit out of a hat when needed.
Yeah. You have a couple products over your left shoulder that I'm very familiar with, the bad stuff,
Yeah.
and then that's it.
Yeah.
Talk about those products, how those came about. The bad stuff's kind of fun.
Sure.
It's a high-end tequila, and Hector and I and a good buddy of ours, Brian Goodman, we like to joke that we are owners of a tequila company. Yeah, we're three in a huge pool of a lot of people who have invested. But
Right.
yeah, either one of those. Talk about either one of those if you would.
Sure, sure. I mean, um, yeah,
And there's
that's
thousands,
it,
but
fruit
those are the
bar.
couple that I
No,
can
no,
say.
yeah, yeah. Those are a couple. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's it, fruit bar. I don't know how much, I guess I'm just gonna share and I'll ask for forgiveness, not permission.
that's okay. And I probably have several of those on my shelf in my pantry right now. I'm a big fan of that.
So, um, I'll just say allegedly, the
There you go.
hypothetically, there was some people that worked for that company, and the owner of the company hypothetically
Hmm.
spoiled them really well. And they've got a nice building in downtown LA. It's a glass building with a glass conference room and glass offices, and they've got cappuccino machines, the finest stuff. You got fruit bars to snack on. Um, Start times 9 a.m. Some of their staff would roll in at 10, clock in, and then go downstairs and go get a specialty coffee somewhere, and then come back up to start working like,
Hmm.
40 minutes later. There was a lot of these individuals, and they wanted to bring their pets to work,
Hmm.
and they wanted a nap room, and the owner would buy lunch every Friday, several, like $800, $900 of like really good food. And some of these people, like, do we have to eat here? Like,
Hmm.
really, really ungrateful.
Yeah.
And legend has it that she said, get the hell out of here. All of you are gone. And then I come in
Hmm.
and I greet this person with a hug, a warm hug, and and a lot of experience. And next, 2 years of doing that's it for
Hmm.
Costco and, you know, those bars, lots of other bars, mini bars, all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of that story.
Yeah. I love
Um, the bad stuff.
it.
Do you remember how the name came about? Did I tell you that?
I don't know. I mean, I know what the vernacular of, oh, this is so bad,
Okay.
it's like, so I'm guessing it has something to do with that, but yeah, no, clue
I'll,
me in.
I'm going to give you the medium story.
All right, cool.
A buddy of mine, Tom, is a printer and he prints a lot of stuff and he knows a lot of people. He's very, very successful. He and I go back 20 plus years, and he's a guy from Wisconsin. If you know anybody from Wisconsin, salt to the earth. I mean, I just love
Mhm.
this man. He's so cool. We've done so many things together. Um, and he's telling me about this guy named George who um, has this online gambling business. and he's very successful, and he's got a lot of money, and something to do with the feds, and him having to take his business offshore because they weren't getting enough money. I don't know, something to do with money. When you make a ton of money,
More money, more
you know,
problems.
yeah. So I've heard these stories, and then I'm with a friend of mine shooting pool. Her name is Robin Dodson, and she lives in Orange County. And this is all during the same time period, probably 5, 6 years ago. And she's a two-time Hall of Famer, 9-ball champion.
Hmm.
She's played against the Black Widow. The Black Widow and her went head to head. So Robin Dodson is a two-time Hall of Famer, two-time 9-ball champion, world champion. I met her. We became friends. I'm at her house. We're shooting pool. It's like Vegas style tournament in her house. She's a
Hmm.
beautiful home in Orange County. And as we're shooting, she goes, Hector, did I ever tell you how I got this house? And I said, no. And she says, well, when I was a kid growing up in Westminster or something, she goes, I used to sneak out of my house when I was like 13 years old, and I'd go to the pool hall. And there was this guy, George, there, and he would kind of take care of me, made sure nobody messed with me. He would make sure I got home safe. I'd be playing pinball. It was a pool hall, and he was a bookie.
Hmm.
And so she goes, anyhow, fast forward, I'm a single mother. I got 3 boys. And George calls me, he goes, hey, Robin, what are you doing? She goes, oh, I'm at home. And he says, you still staying with your mom? She goes, yeah. He goes, hey, I got a house. I'd like you to, if you want to live there, you can at least have some room. And is this big enough for you? And it was a 3-bedroom. And she goes, well, I've got 3 boys. If I had my druthers,
Hmm.
if you had some that had 4 bedrooms, one for me, one for each of my boys. So he knocked down some walls. He sent a construction crew, knocked down
Nice.
some walls, made it 4 bedrooms, customized it, and then he gifted it to her.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, who's this George guy, man? And then she says, fast forward, I married my husband, Roy, and I called up George and I said, hey, George, I'm getting married. I'd love for you to attend the wedding. He goes, where are you getting married? And she goes, in Vegas. He goes, I'll be there. He goes, I effing own Vegas.
Hmm.
He paid for the entire wedding, all the hotels, all the food, all the drink,
Hmm.
everything was on George. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. He's a bookie.
Right.
I connected the two Georges. These two people, Tom and Robin, have no clue who each other are. And I said, my buddy's been talking to me about a guy named George. I think it might be the same guy. She goes, what's his last name? Hey, Tom, what's George's last name?
Mhm.
Molesberger. I go, is this him? She goes, oh my God, can you connect me with him? I lost his number a few years ago.
Wow.
I connected them. She goes to Santa Monica where he lives. He lives in the same building as Ron Howard, the movie director.
Mhm.
And I get a picture of Robin and George huddled up on a seat at a cafe to me. And then a couple of weeks later, George calls me and he goes, hey, Hector, I hear good things from Robin and from Tom.
Hmm.
He goes, why don't you meet me at Dan Tana's? And I'm like, sure. And I don't, do you know where Dan Tana's in West
Familiar
Hollywood?
with it.
It's a
Yeah.
famous
Never
place. All
been, but
the
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
A-listers show up and have drinks there, and some
Yeah.
it's old school, kind of
Been
Vegas
around a
style
long time.
lounge.
Yeah.
So I'm telling Yolanda, hey, this bookie guy
Hmm.
owns the world's largest online gambling business is inviting me to go. And he's
Yeah.
like, and I've never met the guy. And he's like, yeah, show up at Dantana's, be there at 5. They don't open until 5:30. Have your car valeted and walk around the back. And if you know,
Your
that
wife's thinking this
area.
might be the last time I see Hector. Yeah.
So I show up, valet my car. I'm like, I'm looking around. There's nobody around. It's stinky and dirty and it's kind of messy around there. But I walk around the back and I knock on the door, and this big guy goes, what do you want?
Hmm.
I'm like, here to see George. Oh, you must be Hector. Come on in. It was literally like an Italian mob movie, shrimps flying, steam everywhere. Come on, he's walking me through the kitchen.
Hmm.
I get to the front. George is there with his financial guys, marketing guys, videographer, all these people. And he goes, Hector, my son, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Come and sit down.
Wow.
He goes, this is the manager of the place. He handles all my catering at my home. And this is the owner. He's going to order for you. What the heck?
Hmm.
So it was a wild evening, to
Hmm.
put it lightly. And probably a week later, he calls me and he says, Hector, I've got this tequila I want you to redesign for me. I need a new brand. I need a new label. I
Mm.
need a box. It's a super high-end tequila. I don't care what you charge. You're doing my work.
Hmm.
So that
Wow.
was the beginning. And then he told me the story of how he was at Del Mar at the finish line, and he goes, Hector, he goes, this tequila I've been trying to get to market for a dozen years. I need your help. He goes, I'm at the racetrack. I'm at the finish line. There's these three Mexican dudes in the next box, president's box next to me, and they're sipping something out of an IV bottle
Hmm.
in a little cup. And I walk over and I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? And they go, oh, we're sipping tequila. Would you like some? And he goes, no, I'm a Scotch guy. I don't touch tequila. They go, no,
Hmm.
no, come here, try this. He took a sip and he says, this is the baddest shit I've ever tasted. Like,
Nice.
this is it. Thus the name, The Bad Stuff. He
Bad
couldn't
stuff.
call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it took him 12 years to convince them to mass produce it because they only made one barrel a year for close
Mm.
friends and family. And you know how it tastes. I know how it tastes. It's
Right.
velvety smooth,
Yep.
those butterscotch undertones and vanilla, and it's just incredible.
Really good.
That went into the VIP swag bags the day it arrived from printing of the Golden Globes.
Nice.
So yeah, really,
Awesome.
really interesting backstory, right?
So how do you get, I mean, when I tell people about what you do, I say, walk down the freezer aisle, look at all the different, packaging in the refrigerator, freezer aisle, and in the aisles throughout the grocery store. Pretty good chance Hector's had something to do with that design. I'm guessing word of mouth is the answer to my question. Is that how you
Uh,
get most of your business now? You do work for one company and
yeah, most of my
yeah,
business,
yeah.
and I've graduated. I used to just design stuff. Now I create experiences with
Hmm.
packaging.
Yeah.
So, I like to say hitting three senses is memorable. Hitting all five is unforgettable. And
Hmm.
that's my goal. Visually appealing, tactile to the touch, like multisensory. Putting a link to a Spotify, like we did stuff for Warren G, the rapper. That
Hmm.
without Warren G, there'd be no Snoop Dogg. Yeah,
Right.
that guy,
Yeah.
triple platinum artist. Um, he has a barbecue sauce line, and we created a foil label with Long Beach in the background, and it's very visually appealing, and it's so silky smooth to the touch, the label. That's a second thing. And then we put a link to his curated music, his Spotify link to what he loves to listen to when he's grilling and
Hmm.
chilling with his family and friends. And then you open it and there's peach notes that you can smell. And then when you put it on your meat and taste it,
The
that's
taste.
hitting on all five senses. So I create those type of experiences. When you touch it, you have a sense of ownership to these packages.
It's interesting because most people buy something for the taste, and that's the last thing. They're so committed and loyal to it before they've actually tasted it because of those other
That's
four
exactly it.
senses. I love that.
Yeah.
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 So what's the best way if there's a company out there or an individual that wants to MBN make their brand new, which I believe is what MBN
Yeah.
stood for at some point, maybe it
Yeah.
still does.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the best way to reach you and what's the perfect client for you?
The perfect client is somebody that wants an experience and wants to build a brand, not a not a product. They want to build a brand where they can create a cult following and that it means something to someone. Kind of like um, people with regard to brands. It's not just what it looks like, it's the emotion behind it, it's the experience. So anybody that wants to create that experience and have a tribe around their actual brand,
Hmm.
those are the people I want. I mean, I've got anybody in the food and beverage space primarily. We do other stuff, but it's multi-sensory packaging. It's things that people resonate with and actually love. So, um, well-funded startups, food and beverage manufacturers, that's kind of our sweet spot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the book, you had a book you showed me.
Yes.
We've talked about this a lot. It's probably within reach. Pick it up, show me
Yep.
the book and tell me about it.
This book Well, I didn't answer where to reach me.
Oh yeah.
I
So how to
forgot to
reach you?
do
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
Yeah. mbncreative.com is my website, and Hector at MBN, like for making brands new. Hector at mbncreative.com is how they can reach me. And through you, man, you got my
Yeah.
number.
We'll put it in the
So
notes on this too. So yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
social media, LinkedIn especially. So all
sure.
right. For
This
those that are listening and not watching, the title on the front says wrong person, wrong place, right time.
Yeah, there's a visual of jail back there because that was what happened to me when I thought I had life figured out, just turning 19, and ended up with the wrong person who was my brother in the wrong place, which was in the middle of a gang fight at the exact right time to get in trouble. And that changed the trajectory of my life, my career, everything in the worst possible way. Um, if you flip, and this, can you hear that? That
Mhm.
is like sandpaper. It
Yeah.
was rough. This was a very rough period in my life.
Mm.
Um, I want to be the first person to have a book like this where you open it and there's only writing on this side of the pages. So this is a very unique thing. I'm a creative guy.
Yeah.
This is a creative thing. I want to be the very first person. The people that I've shown this to have never seen anything like it.
Mm.
When you flip this around, this is right person, right place, right time in big bold letters for amazing, incredible things to happen. And this is silky smooth. It's a soft touch.
Yeah.
And when you open this, there's only going to be writing on this side of the page.
Sure.
So you're getting the, the bad
Mhm.
start,
Yeah.
turn it into the phenomenal ending.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
powerful.
Thank you, brother.
I
And
love the visual of it. I love the tactile feel of it as you're talking about. I mean, yeah, there's
mhm,
so many things that like just, little things like I'm holding up the little case for my AirPods, and
sure.
you and I have talked about this before, this very product that they
Yeah.
make the product, it feels good to the touch. It's not just some
Sure.
square box with sharp edges. It's a smooth
Right.
feel that when
Right.
you're reaching for something in the dark, you found it
Yeah.
because of the way it
Yeah.
feels. And I know how to open it with my thumb and get my AirPods
Yeah.
out and boom, I'm listening to music. So
Yeah.
very
That's
similar.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me
Cool.
about, so what's the plan for the book? Where are you at with it? What's the goal?
I printed 3 covers, one that I keep here at my office, one that I keep at my home, and one that I keep in my bag at all times to remind me to continually write
Yeah.
into this. Um, so 2 things started this journey. One of them was speaking on the Authentic Rebel Speaker Series, which I unearthed that story. The second thing is a good friend of mine, Ed Hart, asked me to
I'm opening it
write
up right now on my computer, actually.
write a
Yeah.
chapter. And so that chapter is a lot of, I skipped a lot of the details and a lot of I kept this version very clean on this
Hmm.
podcast. But in the story, in the book, it's not so clean. It's very detailed and it's very intimate and it's, yeah, it's real. So that is a big part of what's going to be in this book. So thank you for gifting me the opportunity, brother, to be able to write a chapter in a book with so many amazing other people. And I see this as not just a book, but perhaps being a talk track. And
Hmm.
um, because I talk about how the weather
Yeah.
was growing up, I am
Yeah.
very intentional about the weather I bring to every place I go. And I say, I bring a nice 72 degrees with a slight ocean breeze and the sun peeking through a couple of puffy clouds.
Hmm.
And that's how I roll up every single day and how I'm here with you. I'm bringing the
Yeah.
weather, and my purpose in life is to make every room better than I found it. And I hope I've done that here today with you, man,
Well, I'm going to
and with
read
your
real quickly
audience.
for those. Hector alluded to this book that we're working on, just about finished now, called Boomer Wisdom: Love Letters to the Next Generation. And what this is there's 60 of us, Hector and I, and 58 others, who've each written a chapter from the lessons that we've learned in our lives to the next generation, whatever that might be. It could be you know, the 10 years younger than us. It could be the 50 years younger than us. It could be those not born yet. It could be in your family. It could be in your profession, whatever you think the next generation is you're writing to. Hector's chapter starts with, I like to refer to us as the last of the classics. In fact, 1964, the year Hector and I both were born, was the last year the US minted coins with silver in them. Hector's words here, I also love the classics like the Beatles and so many classic 64 cars. A few things that I've picked up along the way. A good business person knows the outcome of the meeting before they even enter the room. I love that. That's really powerful. And then this is the part that I really want to focus in on and have you address momentarily before we close up today. My purpose, Hector says, in life is to leave every room I enter better than I found it, whether at the grocery store, office, or even the room in your head as you read this now. I like that a lot. If I knew then what I know now, I'd be kinder and approach those that have been hurt with a hug rather than avoid them, like that person that your mom had you go talk to when you were a kid. I'd pass out many more hugs. The grass is greener where you water it. And this is a sentence. I want you to address this sentence. Okay, I haven't talked to you about this since you sent me this. So this is now the time that I'm going to have you expand on this sentence a little bit. There's a lot of growing up between it fell and I broke it. What do you mean by that?
It's probably my all-time favorite quote. It's about being accountable for your actions. It's about every single thing that can go wrong and you owning your part of it. So every single day things go wrong with my staff, with myself, anybody, with you, things go wrong. It doesn't go exactly as planned. And I don't like playing the blame game. I don't like saying that happened or it fell. Nothing ever falls. People break things. And or fill in the blank. Stuff happens. If I put a glass on the edge of this thing and I accidentally bump it and it falls and breaks, I'm like, oh, it broke. It didn't break. I broke it. It's about accountability. I've taught one of my staff that, and she's so grateful for it because she gets it. And it's so much easier to go, hey, I am sorry. I broke this. I messed up. It's about being accountable. It's about stepping up and going, you know what? I effed up. It's me. It happened. I'm going to try my best for this not to happen again. That's what that means to me. And the people that are always pointing fingers at, there's a lot of other people that will point fingers to
Yes.
There's no excuse, man. It's like, just own your stuff, own it. You'll be so much freer.
So you talk about accountability, and you've been through a lot. We've outlined here in this couple hours we've been together today, and it's not enough, but we have to wrap it up here in a second. You're not accountable for what happened to you when you were a kid. You're not accountable for what happened to you as a 19-year-old who was sent wrongfully to prison for murder one. What is your accountability when it comes to that? Not your accountability because of what happened, but now, as a 60-year-old man turning 60 this year, what's your accountability? Sorry, I just let you out of your age.
To never get in that situation again, like ever, ever, ever. I'm accountable for myself. I can't blame anybody for my shortcomings or, I own my own stuff. Like, it's up to me to succeed. And I'm not gonna, I don't want to bring politics in, but it doesn't matter who's in office. I'm in office, baby. I'm in office for
President
myself.
me.
I'm an entrepreneur, and it doesn't matter who's in office. $1 billion companies are gonna go bankrupt. Doesn't matter, and people are gonna succeed like crazy. It doesn't matter who's in office. Quit. Let's not have all these issues. Let's not be followers, and let's lead. Let's lead. We have the ability to make as much money as well. We're so spoiled rotten. Like, we are so spoiled rotten. We take so many things for granted. Like, dude, I am so good with me, man. And I want you to be so good with you. And I love you, brother, man. Me and you, we're tight, and we're kind of like the twins, right?
There you go.
Schwarzenegger and De Niro, man.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
like
Danny
we're so
DeVito, Arnold
different.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, we're so different yet so alike. I think we
Yeah.
both have a big heart and a heart for others, and we care for others, and we want to see the best in others. And yeah, I don't like being a follower, man. I
Yeah.
really don't. I try to be different, and I'm gonna make good choices and bad choices, and I am so blessed. I've won so much more than I've lost. I've been taken advantage of, so have you. We have a kind heart.
Yep.
It's all good, man. We're living life and we're learning and we're teaching each other and mentoring others, and I love that, man.
So I have three last questions. Okay. First
Yeah, bring
question.
it.
First question, fill in the blank. My biggest goal for the next 10 years is
Grow like I've never grown before, and I'm talking and inspire others like I've never inspired before, and be my real self and my authentic self like I've never been before. That's what I want to accomplish in the next 10 years. I want to be more full of joy and happiness so that people are just attracted to that and they want to know what my secret is so I can tell them all the different things that I do on a daily basis to be intentional about how I show up.
this next question makes me emotional, and I want you to break it into two parts. Your
You got
daughters
it.
are Jacqueline and Marissa.
Yep.
Start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, what I want for you is, and then Marissa, what I want
Mm.
for you is.
Mm. I heard a really funny thing, and I know you get emotional and it feels emotional, and but one of my girls said, it's so funny. They might they said, "Don't let your boyfriend get in the way of your husband."
So good. So good. I like that. Yep.
So
Hmm.
so I'm not saying anything because
Right.
I mean I wish for them to be their authentic self, because when you take off that mask and you put it in your back pocket, man, it is so good.
Hmm.
It's so good not to try to be anybody else, and they're so well equipped to be themselves. That's what I wish, and they've got so much growing to do, and I'm so proud of who they are, and I think they need to be proud of themselves too because they've grown in so many ways, dude. Yeah, I'm amazed at their growth.
Hmm.
I just yeah, that's what I want. I want for them to continue to grow and maybe follow a little the old man's path and be a little fearless
Yeah.
and and just take that mask off. We all have one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We're all hiding behind something. All right. My final question. If you've heard any of my episodes, and I know you have, you know this last question. And it's sort of redundant because you just spent the last 2 hours answering this question, but now I'm going to give you a chance to just kind of do the Reader's Digest version. If anybody doesn't want to listen to the entire podcast, I'll put this at the front. You can just
sure.
listen to this answer right here of the question I'm about to ask to learn everything you need to know about this man, Hector Garcia, that I call one of my closest friends of all time. Hector Garcia, what's in your heart?
My heart is full of empathy, joy, uh, determination, and yeah, just I'm on a mission, brother. My heart is full of every single morning I wake up and I'm happy. I My heart is filled with joy and happiness and gratitude. Yeah. I'm incredibly blessed, beyond blessed. And that's what my heart's filled with. And and I'm a work in progress. So sometimes, right, there's things that are in my heart that maybe aren't exactly what I just said. So when I do my breath work, brother, I breathe in fresh, clean energy and air, and it's bright and it's beautiful, and I'm smiling, brother. And when I exhale smoke and it's toxicity. And I do that every day, man. I do that every day, and it sets the tone for my day, and it cleanses my heart, it cleanses my soul, and it prepares me to be the absolute best version of myself.